Welcome to the Grill 2020. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Richard.
We're 2 days away from Christmas. Merry Christmas, Richard.
Merry Christmas, Ryan, here on the Grill. This is a safe space. Say Merry Christmas here. We're not afraid to say it. And you feel free to comment Merry Christmas to us if that's what you so choose, because you can be it here. You can say that here. You can be a Christian. It is safe to be a Christian. It is safe to be yourself here on the Grill.
Absolutely. So today's topics, the government is shut down over the next week. Don't worry, folks. The Grand Canyon is still up and operational. Not all the national parks, but still the Grand Canyon. We're out of Syria. Trump takes 2,000 troops out of Syria. So we're going to discuss that. And also New Hampshire is thinking about moving their primary schedule before Iowa. What consequences that could have for Trump, the Republicans, the Democrats. Thank you for watching today. If you'd like to support this program, we have a few different options that you can support the stream in the description section, and we appreciate any contribution that you would have for us. So, Richard, let's start it off here. Government shutdown, 800,000 people. This is going to affect 360,000 of them are going to be sent home without pay. The first question, was this the right thing to do to get $5 billion for the border wall and do something that Republicans and Democrats haven't been able to do for 20 years? And the second question is, how do you think this will affect Trump in the polls?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Ryan. All considerations I think that had to go into both the Democrats and the Republicans is they were prepping to, actually face each other down and leading up to this government shutdown. I'm going to just tell you this: Trump had to do this. We had Ann Coulter write perhaps a rather not so justified column saying that Trump would go down as something along the lines of, a chaos, a goofball president without much of a legacy. Jim Jordan and all the rabble-rousers in the Freedom Caucus were basically saying he had to make a stand here. Trump needs his base with him. He cannot turn his back on his base. He cannot have the appearance of turning his back on his base. He cannot have those talk radio show hosts, the right figures on the right, criticizing him for backing down or not keeping his word. He needs this. This is as good a time as any. Workers are going to be home for Christmas anyways. This is a lot of non-essential personnel. They'll all be caught up when they come back. I will say this, though. He probably didn't have much of a choice. He had to do this. He had to shut the government down. I saw a nice meme that
certainly.
Yes.
Catgirl's in the chat. Catgirl, thanks for joining us tonight. And Catgirl says, triple wall and Crocs in a ditch in front. Now that is a good idea.
Well, there you go. You have to build a moat, Catgirl. We should add a big, beautiful wall with a moat so we can have our Crocs.
Get the Crocs at the border, the wall. Heck, even put security under the wall, because of course, the smugglers are smart. They dig under the wall, so we got to do something about under it too.
Yeah. You've seen those tunnels that are very well lit, very well constructed. They look safe, and they might end up going from Tijuana to some warehouse in San Diego. I've seen some with lighting and some with tracks. So they're able to be effectively, move some shipments there. It's really quite amazing. This is something else. The political considerations aside, Trump had to do this. I think Trump's going to come out on top, Ryan, and I'm going to tell you why. The last government shutdowns that we've had, the president has always come out on top. The Congress has always seemed unreasonable. Basically, he's acting as a single person, single figurehead. The president is able to actually get a very good message out there rather than a bunch of different congressional losers out there. And Chuck Schumer, God bless him, he really is just incompetent and way past his time at being able to get a message out. He's talking about, I saw something about him a while back talking about Abbott and Costello. Those movies came out and they're black and white. No one born after the 50s is going to even remember who the hell those Abbott and Costello are. I do, because my dad rented those movies back in the 90s, back when they had movies that could be rented. So, Chuck Schumer's not going to win this on a PR front. This is a battle of the bases.
Certainly. Catgirl, just out of curiosity, what state do you live in? Richard is in California. I'm in Colorado. If you live in a border state, to the point of the border wall, I mean, it's tough to live in a border state. It's tough to we have to deal with the gangs and the drugs. I mean, particularly in Southern California, and even to a large extent in Northern California. Perhaps Richard, you can comment on sort of how illegal immigration is affecting Northern California.
Well, you don't even have to live in a border state right now, really, because the networks of these drug cartels are so well extended. And the network of some of these really righteous human trafficking gangs, something that, the left should be against sex slavery. It should be against, indentured servitude, which is essentially what you have with these, with what these gangs are pushing. They'll drug, for example, children, minors, and women, and then, force them into sex slavery. Where is the left now with women's rights and Me Too? We're not talking about immigration. We're talking about illegal immigration, where we have so much of the gang activity is through illegal immigration and through these illegal means. And the trafficking of persons, it needs to stop. Trump is absolutely right. You can walk and chew gun at the same time. You can encourage a lot of these countries, and I think Mexico is probably doing some things to do this, because there are a lot of the problems are coming from south of their border. And they're going to want to control a lot of what's going on there. So I don't blame them. They're trying to keep a lot of trouble out. There's a nice buffer state for us if they're really willing to come on board. But we really don't want all the trouble that comes along with these gangs. And it's a good statement, and the left would not be fighting it as much if it was not as potent and powerful a statement as it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Cat Girl's she's from Denmark and Scandinavia. So shout out to those countries. I have some Norwegian blood. The last 3 letters of my last name is SEN. So shout out there. It's a lot of good music.
You can see Norway there in the background of his office studio.
Yeah, no, it's Norway, Sweden, Finland is up there. Bless you.
Excuse me.
A lot of good music comes out of Denmark. A lot of good poker players out of Denmark, Scandinavia too. So Cat Girl had an interesting comment. We are all flooded here in Europe. We have the Muslim gangs. They're very bad gangsters compared to what we had before. I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, obviously, there's some tough people in Europe. Some tough Irish gangs back in the day, tough Italians. But compare that to what some of the Muslim gangs, especially in Germany, is my understanding. I remember watching a story on Fox about how the Muslim gangs in Germany are particularly bad for that area. Of course, the left.
Right. I think there's a lot going on.
Yeah, of course, the left would just.
They look to Scandinavia for the welfare state, but what are the Scandinavian countries for the welfare states? But they don't look to them for their immigration policies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Keep the faith, Cat Girl. Really happy to have you. Come on as a guest sometime.
So Cat Girl, are you an American expat, or did you grow up in Scandinavia? That leads to an interesting poll I saw on Drudge Report. Apparently, 1/3 of Americans have some sort of plan in their mind that they would like to move to a different country. That really is an interesting poll number.
How much of that is that these liberal nuts who will never actually move anywhere, they're just saying that because they don't like the president?
I wouldn't be so surprised. Like, okay, so there's 2 sides to that.
They were going to move to Canada when Bush was president, right? The enlightened socialist nation, the North.
That's true. No, I can understand the sentiment, but I can also understand sort of another way of putting it. Of like, say you're like a right or conservative leaning person who lives in California, and then of course there's the good options. You can move to Midwest and so on. But I mean, if you're just an average ordinary citizen, would you rather live in California or Norway? I think you'd rather live in Norway. Not even close.
Interesting, very interesting. Having never been there, I don't know.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What are your prognostications for the government shutdown? Is he going to get more funding than the 1.2 billion that Schumer says he's never going to get?
I think it just depends on what mindset Trump has. I think, let's just put it this way, the more likely he thinks the Democrats are going to impeach him and succeed, and they'll try to succeed without evidence, the more likely that he thinks that is the case, the more likely he's willing to keep the government shut longer and get more of his compromise. I think that's sort of what I think is going to happen. I guess I'll throw the question back to you, not like a boomerang, but just throw it back to you. If you're President Trump and you think the Democrats are going to destroy you by any means necessary without evidence, what are some things that you would do outside of the border wall that you just say to yourself, I'm president, screw it, I'm just going to do whatever it takes, issue-wise?
Yeah. So the question is he going to, for example, as he was kind of floating around, is he going to use the military budget to actually build the border wall? He can make it a case for that. Are they going to actually bring the, suit all the way up to the Supreme Court and, have an injunction from the Ninth Circuit? Mm-hmm. Just get the Ninth Circuit to the rescue.
Woo, woo, woo. Here comes the clown court.
There's the San Francisco-based, appellate court. There you go. If you can't get what you want in the ballot box, let's get it through the courts. That's the leftist line.
It is. It is.
Our last line effectively legislative branch. You know what? Good luck with that, folks. But Roberts has gone soft lately. Maybe that might have something to do with it. Roberts, why weren't you this tough with Obama when Obama criticized the Supreme Court? Stop going to your DC cocktails and actually pay attention to governing. As a member of the judicial branch, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Come on. Anyways.
Yeah, that was a surprising one to hear that about Justice John Roberts, because I remember 10 years ago.
You fought hard for him. I remember where you were at.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I did a radio program, and Richard was a guest on the program a few times back when I was in college. And it's interesting, the future of talk radio. I kind of wonder how much longer it's going to survive with all the social media platforms and obviously the big news where the Blaze and who went together, the Blaze and CRTV.
CCRTV, yeah.
CCRTV, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how much longer talk radio lasts.
You know what? As long as they're keeping on top of issues, I think they actually have a future. Air America notwithstanding. Senator Groper Fankin, Al Gropin.
Yeah, the liberals do way better on TV ratings wise than they do radio. Like, liberal talk radio is just such a failure of a concept. I mean, I can't think of one in the top 5, maybe even the top 10, who's truly a liberal. I mean, maybe you've watched Hannity. I'm trying to think of her name. She's very libertarian from Los Angeles. Her name escapes me, but she's on Sean Hannity quite a bit. But yeah, it looks like Cat Girl, thank you for being with us, and we hope you have a good night.
Yes, come on as a guest sometime. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely.
Love a foreign perspective.
What time is it in Denmark? It's got to be like 5 in the morning. 4 in the morning.
Thank you for getting up so early to watch us. And I guess it's Christmas Eve there for you. Merry Christmas Eve.
We hope we didn't wake you, because when I set up this program, you might have got a subscription notification. So if we woke you, we hope you had a good time.
Very good, very good. Next, I think we were going to discuss next. Was it
Syria?
Syria, yes, Syria pullout. What are your thoughts initially, Brian?
So Liz Cheney came out against that. That's almost all you need to know. The daughter of the Halliburton stock. I'll admit my position has evolved over the years. I used to be more on the neocon side, more on the Bush side of we need to fight them over there before they can come here. Fight them over there so they don't come here. I think there's definitely a better line that you could use with that. I think there's a compromise. I think you can use human intelligence. I think you can use drones. I think you can keep the dictators in power who are friendly to us rather than allowing these uprisings to occur. I think that's just a better policy. And I think it goes to there's a big debate right now within the Republican Party between the Trump, Rand Paul wing of it, in terms of the American first, we'll fight where our interests are, but we have to be very careful about that, versus the neocon idea that we have to be involved in every part of the world at every time, lest somebody else will gain power. We can't allow the Russians to have any power at any point. What do I think about it? I think a lot of this came out of my understanding is the true reason why there's a lot of reasons. First of it is, kind of the defense of Israel and Israel as an ally in the region. But I think the second reasons that I've heard that I think may make some sense in terms of the natural resource context is that Russia is trying to take advantage of a pipeline that would go from Syria up towards Europe and towards Russian territory, so they'll be able to take advantage of it. So the argument was we got to prevent the Russians from gaining access to a pipeline. Essentially, is one sort of theory that I've heard out.
Oh my gosh! Let them have the damn pipeline. I mean, really. Syria, okay, I'm all for defeating ISIS. There's some real thugs, Trump was talking about carpet bombing them. Our interest really wasn't defeating ISIS. Even some ISIS-inspired attacks, occurred during the Obama administration here. I think of San Bernardino, for example, and then some other idiots, that might, and they are idiots, who might actually, in losers, that might actually think that ISIS has anything good to offer them. So that was fine. We don't want something like the Taliban giving Al-Qaeda a base of operations like they did in the 90s and early 2000s. So we certainly don't want that. But now that we've accomplished the damn job, get the hell out of there. It is in Iraq, where Obama pulled out too early, and he did. And Obama created ISIS. It's true. It's an inflammatory fact when Trump said it, but Obama did create ISIS by pulling out too quickly. Sorry. But the issue, of course, for Trump is, Syria. We didn't invade Syria. We just took care of the base of operations for ISIS. Now that they're gone, screw them. They hate us anyways. So why are we going to defend someone people that hate us? Our interests are taken care of. Looks like we've got enough protection for the populations that were seriously at risk. Trump was absolutely right. We absolutely have to make sure that the minority Christian populations, for example, are not left abandoned. But he took care of all that. So screw ISIS. And if the Syrians don't like us, then why the hell are we there? That may sound like an overly simplistic argument. People like neocons that are so smart, like Lynn Cheney and Dick Cheney and all those other people, Donald Rumsfeld, think they got it all figured out. When no one really actually subscribes to what they believe, nor have they ever. So basically they had to manipulate fiscal and religious conservatives for years to be able to get them into office. So screw you. We've got it taken care of. Liz Cheney, the very fact that your last name is Cheney basically disqualifies you from, being an impartial voice on this issue.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right about that. Another aspect of this too is that, there are ways to compromise, and you could say to yourself, okay, Russia will give you the pipeline, but then you have to give over some of your weapons that some people fear will be sold on the black market. So let's make a compromise. Let's make sure that none of those get in the hands of some of those stand countries that exist south of the large Russian border.
Right.
I think the best argument against neoconservatism is protect your border first. Protect yourself at home first. I mean, people wonder, the fight's going to come here. Well, it's like if we had a better border security and we had better security in general, and we monitored who was coming in the country, and we just didn't allow anybody and everybody who's trying to fool us and take advantage of us. That's a very good start. And then secondly, you fight where your interests are. I mean, obviously we do need oil. Our economy cannot function without oil, so we do need a presence. But we need a firm presence, and we need a presence that puts us first and not corporations and not anybody else.
We're a net exporter of oil right now, Ryan. We're a net exporter.
Yeah. We
net export oil. We're a net exporter of oil. So screw them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, and then I think the third argument is, and I think that's very much the historical military argument, would be don't overextend yourself. That's how empires fall. They lose the ability to fund.
That's true.
They overextend, they lose the ability of funding. You look at examples like the British Empire, you look at the Roman Empire. It's like if we we're not guaranteed, because we have a great constitution doesn't mean we're guaranteed to be around forever if we make bad neoconservative decisions. So I think that's a point that's very much lost, and it's a very interesting argument that's happening right now within the Republican Party.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Couldn't agree with you more. You know, and this is really splitting the conservative movement. I know I've been following National Review. I know alt-right people, please don't get mad at me. I do follow the National Review simply because, you know, there were a good number of Trump voters that read the National Review and that take them seriously. I like William F. Buckley. May rest in peace. But this is split up the National Review. The National Review is very split up on this issue. Andrew McCarthy basically said, you know, he is actually very much in favor of what Trump's position is. You know, why sacrifice our blood and fortune for some people that hate us? The rest of the National Review seems to be very much, and you know, the Wall Street Journal editorial page, that editorial page this weekend basically blasted the decision to pull out of Syria. You know, these are globalists. That's their position. This is really cheering up the conservative movement in many respects, but it's not so big of an issue that it's going to divide it and it's going to be prohibitive, to be honest with you. So you know, he's got some leeway here.
You know what's funny is you mentioned the National Review. I never thought of the split in the National Review that way. It's interesting to hear that. Another publication that I've actually heard is a bigger offender in the neocons is actually Bill Kristol in the Weekly Standard. That's who I think when I think of neoconservatives. I think of the Weekly Standard. Oh,
see, the neoconservatives would not be, the Weekly Standard would not be divided on this issue. They would all be against pulling out of Syria. They would be all in favor of interventionism. They liked Obama for his interventionism, and they blasted him when he wasn't interventionist enough. You know, they were all in it. But you know what? What happened to the Weekly Standard, Ryan? What is their fate?
Their fate is a slow death or a quick death. And Bill Kristol is not on Fox News anymore. That's the biggest indicator right there. So
irrelevant Bill Kristol.
Irrelevant Bill Kristol.
Yeah, if this gets back to you or anyone in the White House, there's a very good nickname for Bill Kristol. Irrelevant Bill Kristol.
All right, so our last issue.
You heard it here first.
You know, it's interesting about Bill Kristol too is that Tucker Carlson slammed him in his book too. Even better. That's the double zing. Sing. And now to our last issue of New Hampshire may hold their primary before Iowa. I don't know what this is, but the partial conspiracy theorist in me thinks that the Republican Party's behind this because they think Trump won't do as well in New Hampshire and they'll make him look bad. That's just my first thought that comes out.
So what you're saying is he won't do well, or you know, I take that. I would disagree with you there, Ryan. You know, Trump did better in New England than almost any Republican has in a long time. You know, there just weren't enough. You know, people to actually, you know, if the Access Hollywood tapes, I saw some analyses after the 2016 elections, if the Access Hollywood tapes hadn't come out, he'd have carried Minnesota and New Hampshire. Plus the second congressional district, the electoral vote that he got out of Maine, you know, I think he did as well, better than any Republican has in recent memory, you know, at least in 20 years in New Hampshire, notwithstanding the fact that that W carried it and Bush 43 carried it in 2000. So anyways, yeah, there you go. But you know, that may very well, you know, I think it'll do fine in New Hampshire. Who the hell is going to challenge him in New Hampshire? Kasich is going to do good in New Hampshire. Yeah, there's one. Kasich couldn't even, you know, Kasich is vetoing all these bills, conservative bills, trying to brand himself as a moderate. Kasich, you can go to hell. Your Republican Party doesn't exist anymore. I don't know where you came off as a moderate, because back in the 90s you were basically leading the charge for the Gingrich Revolution. So I don't know when you turn squishy, but you know, I think you're more in it for yourself than anyone else.
Very, very good.
That's what I really think.
Tell us how you really feel. No, that was good. That was good. Very good. Well, thank you for joining us with The Grill this week. We will hopefully be back next week, hopefully the same time in the same place. And we hope you have a great Christmas, and we look forward to our next show with you.
All right. Take care. Merry Christmas to everybody.